I watched the Pacers beat the Knicks last night, and what a fun game, right? Like I was in and out in the first quarter, and I flip back on. It's like second quarter, both teams with like 7 minutes to go, like are in the 50s. I'm like, this is awesome, right? Now they were on pace for like a buck 40. They didn't get there, but still was a good watch. And at the end, Tyrese Haliburton ends up with a historic night: 32, 12, 15 assists, zero turnovers, zero turnovers. The most games in NBA history with 30 plus points, 15 plus assists, and zero turnovers. He's the third player in playoff history with 30, 10, and 15. And now he has the most playoff triple doubles in Pacers history. Tyrese Haliburton was great. Knicks weren't bad. They just couldn't stop anybody. Obviously, they couldn't stop the Pacers. I don't know about anybody else. No one else mattered last night. And the Pacers take a commanding 3-1 lead. Series not over because you do potentially have 2 left in New York. They obviously got to win 5. And then, 6 becomes anything the Knicks can do to win a game on the road. We'll see. But I thought about this today, and I kind of want to flesh it out with you guys. Okay. What if the players' poll that was conducted could in fact be true and it could be false now? And you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Here's one of the things that we struggle with as fans. We struggle with this with politics as well, is we don't take into it, we don't take context into account. Context is everything. Everything. I remember there were things that were said about President Biden when he was running, where they had footage of him in, I want to say like early 90s, maybe even late 80s in Congress, and the things that he was pushing for now would be like super conservative agenda. But we're not taking into account is the times. Like at the time he was pushing towards change that we can't even imagine now. Or even go back historically. Like when we went through that summer of, was that the summer of 21, right, with all the protests, and you had people looking back at summer 2020. Okay, so that was COVID summer. We were looking back at historic figures and whether or not they had slaves, or how the Declaration of Independence was written. And yeah, of course, now you can't view a human being as 3/5 of a human being, right? But the point is where they wanted to get to as a society at the time was super progressive. Right? It's like all we look through the lens of we look through the lens of today for yesterday, and that's not fair to yesterday. We do it in sports, right? Where we'll sit here and we'll look at old tape of players, basketball, 70s or 80s, or 90s, and we'll say, look at these guys now. This guy was like a plumber. He had no chance to compete against this guy. Well, like, okay, they weren't all plumbers, but even the guys that were plumbers, now they'd make so much money they wouldn't have to be plumbers. They make so much money they could actually hire trainers. Their diet's better. Their workouts are better. They start shooting threes. One of the things, Steph Curry told me this once, when we talked about great three-point shooters of all time. He's like, I've never been on a basketball court that there wasn't a three-point line. Whereas you go back to Larry Bird, Dale Ellis, heck, even Del Curry, right? When they grew up, there was no three-point line. It was a learned trait, and it wasn't embraced the way it is now. So I say that because even within a context of a year, if you asked me early to mid-year, who's the most overrated player in the league, and I could say Tyrese Haliburton. Why? He hadn't done anything in the playoffs. He runs his mouth. He shoots wild shots. He benefits from the systems he played in. When he was in Sacramento, they played fast. When he's in Indy, they play fast. none of those teams do anything in the playoffs, and it really matters, so he's overrated. Well, now he's playing great in the conference finals, and it's easy for him. His mantra, obviously, I'm show you that I'm not overrated, and that's great. But it's also possible that at the time in which the question was asked, he was considered an overrated player. He's an all-star, but he hadn't done anything. He hadn't won anything. Jay Stu, am I making sense to you?
I think you explained it well there, so I do understand your question. I don't agree with it. I do think that this was a poll of decision makers, team builders, GMs. I don't think he would have been the most overrated. I think the people that matter care about his value to a team. I think when you get into these anonymous players poll, I think people just take out their personal grievances in these polls. And I think he's done a lot to piss fellow players off. Whatever he does, he's that guy at work that maybe he can't help it, but he just annoys the crap out of you. And I think maybe that was why he was voted overrated.
So he's the Sam?
Oh, come on. I wasn't going to say his name on the air. We'll clean that up in a minute.
He's the Sam? Is that what it is?
Listen,
Doug,
Sam, you haven't worked with everybody here. I feel like there's more annoying people than me. I can be annoying for sure, but it's more of a joyful annoyance.
Yeah, that's exactly how you're perceived. Joyful annoyance.
Yes.
I
can't really be mad at him.
I'm kidding, of course. Still, but this is it's really interesting.
Does that make sense though? If they were to do the poll today, don't you think the players would vote the same way, or no?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I'm thinking about how.
I think guys in the NBA.
What makes you overrated?
Do I think?
What exact? Because I know his Olympic minutes, he wasn't happy with that, and he had kind of an injury last year. He was working through, and then the slow start this past season.
He didn't say he wasn't happy with his Olympic minutes.
Well, I read a piece online. He only played 26, 27 minutes, and
no, I'm sure he wasn't happy.
Frustrated with that.
Yeah. Okay. Are we going to take Steph out and put you in?
No, I'm not calling into question the coaching decisions, but I think his profile kind of sagged a little bit over the last maybe 6 to 8 months, and now he's showing everybody, I'm Johnny Clutch here.
I just think he hadn't played in meaningful games, and NBA players don't care about what you do.
They did get to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, didn't they? I mean, he's done some playoff work.
That's correct. Eastern Conference Finals last year. Yep.
But again, the perception he wasn't having this level of impact and playing this well, and I'd say also maybe it's the Eastern Conference Finals, because usually the guy who gets the most overrated thing is Trae Young, and Trae Young's terrific, but Trae Young doesn't play championship level defense. He has been to one conference finals, and maybe it's because of the shine that Trae Young gets, or the shoes, or the attention, or the scoring, or the passing, or whatever, and people aren't paying attention to the defense. I don't know, but usually that's a Trae Young award. I don't think he would be the most overrated player now. I do think he has earned some respect, and yet, again, here's where both can be true. Jay Stu, you're right. I think he's pissed a lot of people off. I think he runs his mouth a ton. I think that's how he plays. I think that's how he gets the most out of himself. I think it annoys the hell out of his opponent, but now they're winning, so what are you going to actually say about him? What are you going to say about him? You can call him whatever you want. Overrated, just who cares? His team keeps winning games. Here's Tyrese Haliburton when he was asked about his historic performance after the game.
The most combination points, rebounds, assists, steals with no turnovers in a game ever, ever. What is that? Did you know that? And what is that like to do that?
No, I didn't know that. I feel like we making up stats at some point to make me look better. But I think I'm just trying to play the right way, man. I just want to impact winning.
Look, listen, it's a great answer, and I do think he wants to impact winning. I think he's an awesome player. And I also agree with you. Now we're just making up stats, but those are pretty obscene stats. By the way, his dad got to watch him in person. Here's Haliburton talking about his dad.
I'm wondering if what went on with him, if that was tough for you, and just if there were some emotions about having him back in here tonight.
Uh, Emotions, no. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you guys here. Like, my dad is just fine. Like, he lives just fine. He's at the house watching the game in a beautiful home, or he's finds his way in some sports bar with a bunch of Pacer fans. My dad is doing just fine. I think there was obviously a lot of commentary around him, especially right after, which I think some was warranted, some went a little too far. But I mean, that's just sports. That's just sports, and that's just talking heads.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think his dad was the AAU dad that was over the top. I thought he handled it. I thought Tyrese handled it really well, where he's like, "Hey, don't feel bad for him. He's watching in a really nice house." Yeah, I think Haliburton is one of those guys. There's two things that come to my mind when I watch Tyrese Haliburton, and frankly tonight, if Oklahoma City closes him out, which is going back to that discussion we had yesterday. This will look historically like a complete outlier finals. It'll look historically like the Final Four we had a couple years ago with Florida Atlantic and San Diego State. You know, we had Miami. You know, you're like, what? But I think there's a world where we circle back to this 6-7 years from now, and Oklahoma City has won a couple of titles, and Haliburton is a what's it called when you're an all-star? You're an all-star often or all the time. You know, just an all-star point guard in the East, where it won't feel like we'll look back and say, yeah, it wasn't that crazy a series. Because this one reminds me a lot of the 2003 Spurs and Nets. Right? Spurs Nets, which was the lowest rated NBA Finals, or is the lowest rated NBA Finals of all time. And this one will probably beat that. Maybe not, because ESPN, ABC, they know how to stir up some ratings dust out of nothing. But I think much like if we look back on those Spurs teams, and you're like, wow, they had Steve Kerr and Steve Smith that year, and they had obviously Tim Duncan and the makings of a team that was their second championship. And then you look at even the Nets. They had Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin and others, but Jason Kidd ended up becoming, an NBA champion later with the Dallas Mavericks. The point is, when you looked at it as just those team names, it looks really strange and people didn't watch. But then when you get down to it, both teams were really talented, and the substance out of it was something very real.
It reminds me, and I think people watched the series because LeBron was in it, but so it's not similar in that respect. But I do remember specifically having a conversation in the wake of Golden State's first championship. And I remember my host at the time said, this is a team with no Hall of Famers. Maybe Steph Curry makes the Hall of Fame that won this championship. And I'm like, how do you know? Like at that point, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes was a big part of that team. And I'm like, they're so young and this team is so in its infancy of greatness. How do you know? And then, so you fast forward, 10 years? And Draymond and Klay are Hall of Famers, no?
Yes, you're completely right. That's 100% accurate. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Bayer brought this up too. Like, you look back and it might be the start of something great. Maybe right now we're like, we're the 7 different champions in 7 years. But this could be the start of something. Right now we just haven't had enough time elapsed to look back and be like, oh, that was a significant time.
Agree with you.